talk about life safety dampers, really kind of main different categories: fire dampers, smoke dampers, the combination products that also includes corridor dampers, but combination fire smoke damper, FSD products, and then the oddball kind of ceiling radiation dampers. So hopefully we do have a little bit of time to talk about those today as well. First of all, fire dampers, really purpose being required by building codes, essentially maintaining the fire resistance rating of fire rated construction when they are penetrated by HVAC openings. So they are tested to Underwriters Laboratory Standard UL 555. And for us, our models are DFD, Dynamic Fire Damper Group. The R at the end would be the round model, and then FD for Static Fire Damper, and FDR for the round static fire damper. Essentially, the purpose being of these products is to restrict the passage of flame. So it's as defined in NFPA 80, but ultimately detect an increase in heat and close and restrict the passage of flame from one area to the other. Ultimately compartmentalizing these buildings into separate zones and preventing the spread. Smoke dampers, similar purpose, except instead of preventing the spread of flame, now we're talking about limiting leakage when they close and preventing the spread of smoke throughout a system. So slightly different purpose, obviously, different kind of requirements, different features on the products, right? We'll see seals along the blade edges and the edge of the frame to help seal up when they are closed and prevent that spread of smoke when it's pressurized against a closed damper. So they have their own separate test standard, UL 555S, and for us, pretty simple SMD smoke damper models, or SMDR. NFPA 80, control the movement of smoke, defines it that way. Obviously, as the name suggests, the combination FSD products perform the function of both an individual fire and smoke damper, so they carry both the UL 555 and 555S rating. FSD is the typical kind of fire smoke damper. The CFSD is that corridor fire smoke damper product that gets installed horizontally in kind of the tunnel corridor construction. And then at the bottom there, you see GFSD and OFSD. So those are kind of special out-of-wall models. We'll talk a little bit more about those later once we get into the installation phase. And I do have a couple slides here on ceiling radiation dampers. So a little bit different than a fire damper, although they do also have a fusible link to kind of hold them open. But they, the products currently aren't really tested to close against any dynamic airflow. And really the purpose is not necessarily to restrict the spread of flame, but to restrict the spread of radiant heat transfer into a floor ceiling or roof ceiling assembly. So a little bit different purpose, similar sort of construction, but due to the nature of the test, you can end up making them out of a lot lighter gauge material, and being that you're only limiting heat transfer and not necessarily trying to restrict flame, although that would certainly make it difficult to pass a test as well, of course. But yeah, different purpose, different product. They are protecting the ceiling membrane of a floor ceiling or roof ceiling assembly. So whereas a fire damper, we're talking about a complete through penetration of a rated assembly. In the case of a ceiling damper, we're only really talking about protecting that initial membrane layer of the floor ceiling or roof ceiling assembly. And again, we're talking about limiting passage of heat transfer, not complete kind of flame through or protection in that regard. So just something to keep in mind there. Here's a good side-by-side, on the left, ceiling damper protecting that ceiling membrane, on the right, fire damper protecting that full penetration of, in this case, concrete floor. Horizontal fire dampers are pretty limited in how they can be installed themselves. So good side-by-side difference there between the CRD ceiling radiation damper and the FD or DFD fire damper. And I do also have a slide that spells it out too. So there we go. You can see they're tested at different standards as well, right? So bottom line, a ceiling damper is not a fire damper, right? So that's what all of this is intended to kind of illustrate.